Zuko once took a bolt of lightning straight to the chest to save someone he loved, and across more than 60 episodes of training, exile, and then reinvention, he never once learned how to create that lightning for himself. So why is this? Why did Zuko refuse to ever learn to bend lightning? Well, hit that subscribe button, and today we're going to break down the full history of Zuko and lightning bending and what his thoughts on it were and his philosophy behind never using it. So the fact that he didn't use lightning is pretty strange when you think about it. This is a guy who trained under 2 firebending masters, studied with the actual fire sages, and learned from the ancient dragons. And then eventually he helped take down the single most powerful firebender alive. But despite all of this, lightning generation, arguably the most advanced technique in the entire show, stayed just out of his reach the entire time. And the reason actually had nothing to do with skill. So to understand why, we have to look at how Avatar actually explains lightning in the first place. It's not treated just like a stronger version of fire. The show goes out of its way to separate it from everything else that firebenders can do. Regular fire in this world comes from emotion, rage, and passion. And this is because most firebenders just simply haven't learned the ancient techniques of drawing their power from the sun. In Zuko's early time in the show, most firebenders' power is tied directly to how they feel in any given moment. And this works fine for basic combat, but becomes a real problem once you're talking about something as precise as lightning. Iroh lays this out himself in the episode where he finally agrees to teach Zuko the technique of lightning redirection. He describes lightning as the coldest form of firebending that there is, something created only through complete internal stillness. A bender has to separate the positive and the negative energy inside of their own body and hold both in perfect balance, and then bring them back together in a single controlled instant. As you can imagine, for Zuko, this clearly didn't work, and this is exactly what we saw, because this is not about raw power, and it's kind of about an internal balance. It requires the bender to genuinely be at peace with themselves, either through a sociopathic type of peace, which is what Azula has and what allows her to bend lightning, or through a genuine and real peace, someone that understands themselves and is not in inner turmoil, someone like Iroh. Obviously, during that training session, Zuko had horrific turmoil, and that is why he simply could not bend lightning himself. So that's why he can't bend lightning at the start of the series, but what about further in? And after we cover that, we'll cover why he couldn't bend lightning even after he joined Team Avatar and even later in Republic City. By the time he switches sides in Book 3, Zuko is still nowhere near settled. He's still terrified of his new allies that they'll never trust him. He's terrified that his old family will never forgive him, and honestly, he's still a little terrified of who he even is underneath all of this. He has begun to change, but his moments of redemption still haven't come to a conclusion yet when he first joins Team Avatar. And this is no better exemplified by when he tries to teach Aang firebending and his own flames come out weak and lifeless, and he simply can't figure out why. It's only when he and Aang travel to the ruins of the original firebending civilization, the Sun Warriors, and later meet the last 2 Dragon Masters, that he learns the truth that Iroh had been hinting at all along. Fire is not about anger. The first firebenders drew their fire from life itself, from the energy of the sun, and from vitality rather than rage and destruction. So by this point, now that he knows all this, now that he's had his clarifying journey, now that he knows the new and true source of firebending, surely he can bend lightning now, right? Well, unfortunately still no, Zuko still hasn't sorted all of his inner turmoil just yet. And this brings us to the most important moment of his whole arc, during the final Agni Kai in the series finale with Azula. Now that Azula is unraveling completely by this point, she aims a bolt of lightning at Katara out of pure desperation. Zuko throws himself in front of it without hesitation. He manages to redirect most of the strike, but unfortunately not cleanly. And this reflects 2 things. The first is obvious that he was just rushed and he didn't have much time to prepare for this lightning redirection, but the second is that his true inner turmoil and his true separation of the 2 energies within him is still not complete. He's on his way there, he certainly is, because he's just made one of the most selfless actions in his entire arc. But he's still not there just yet. He hasn't completed his arc and his journey as a human and as a newfound hero just yet. So then we move to after the war. The question becomes more complicated because Zuko eventually does find greater balance. He reconciles with Iroh, as we see right at the end of the series, he finds his mother, and he builds friendships that survive political conflict. And he spends decades transforming the Fire Nation from an empire into a country capable of living beside the people it once conquered. The comics still show that this process was not immediate. As a young Fire Lord, Zuko remains anxious, sleepless, and terrified that he will become another Ozai. In fact, he even tells Aang, "If I ever become anything like my father, you must kill me for the balance of the world." Many people have criticized that for being out of character for Zuko in the comics, but hey, it's canon, it's in the comics now, so that's what happened. And I think that statement, now that it is canon, tells us a lot about why he never bends lightning after the series. For him, the war ends, but his fear of inheriting Ozai's cruelty follows him into the peacetime. And this is where things get deeper. Within Zuko's family, lightning was never emotionally neutral. Ozai used it as an execution method against his own son when he tried to kill him after the eclipse. Azula used it to kill Aang literally until he was revived by Katara. And even when Iroh taught Zuko redirection, he did so because Zuko needed a way to survive the violence in his family and that what they might direct towards him. For Zuko, both philosophically and based on the experience of his family, lightning was tied to domination. It was the signature weapon of the people who taught him that power meant the ability to frighten, punish, and destroy. So learning to generate it might have proved that he had reached the technical level of Ozai or Azula, but Zuko's entire adult life was built around rejecting that, and there was no need for his proof that he had become as good as them. So what this tells me is that all of Zuko's life has been leading to him to make this one decision. He was not going to follow in his father's footsteps because lightning was cold-blooded fire. He philosophically was against lightning and he didn't want it used. He didn't want to use it himself because he knew that where it had come from, at least in this time, was pure evil. Now, I do think he doesn't consider the technique itself to be evil, but just because of his environment and because of the people he saw use it, I do think he never wanted to bend it for philosophical reasons of his own. Because obviously later, by the time of the Legend of Korra, ordinary workers used it and controlled lightning to generate electricity just as common folk in Republic City. So obviously the ability had moved beyond the royal family and beyond Zuko's bloodline by that time. And what this means is that he did allow it to spread. He did allow the world to use it for its good purposes like generating electricity and doing stuff for the good of society, but personally he was always against using it, and I think that is the pure reason. That is the concrete reason he never bent lightning in his life, because all he associated with it was violence, killing, destruction, all the things he wanted to turn away from as a Fire Lord and as a better man. And I think because we know in the canon that lightning bending was really only confined to the royal bloodline of the Fire Nation, I think just as a move to walk away from his old past, I think that is why he let it out to the public despite not wanting to use it himself ever. Because don't get me wrong, Zuko certainly had the ability to use it. He was one of the only firebending masters taught by the old masters. So if he wanted to learn it, he certainly could. So that tells me that his decision not to is clearly and purely philosophical and because of his past experiences with it, and that is the pure reason why. And this is further backed up because when Zuko returns as an elderly man during the Red Lotus crisis in The Legend of Korra, he fights using ordinary firebending. He launches broad streams of flame, he defends himself at close range, and simply relies on the direct style that has always defined him with regular fire. And this is really important because in Korra, almost everyone uses a type of specialized bending. I mean, even Korra can metal bend, Marco can of course use lightning himself, and Bolin can lava bend. So the distinct and very clear choice for one of the main characters to not use a specialized bending technique being lightning tells us that it is a deep and innate part of his character refusing to ever use it because of its baggage. And I think that shows the beauty of Zuko. He allowed the world to use it because it wasn't purely evil. The technique could be used for good, just like any technology. It depends on the person using it. So he allowed it to be used for lightning generation in Republic City, but he never was comfortable with using it himself because of the trauma. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this explanation of why Zuko refused to ever use lightning bending in his life. And I think the moment he decided that was the moment of that Agni Kai, when he saw what destruction it could bring. If you made it this far in the video, make sure to check out plenty more on the screen now and drop a thank Mr. Zuko in the comments down below. See you in the next one.